A suspicious millionaire decides to go undercover as a gardener to find out what really happens when he's not at home. He soon realizes that his 4 daughters live in terror of their stepmother, who reveals a cruelty hidden behind false smiles. But it's when the nanny risks everything to protect the girls that the tension explodes in an unexpected confrontation. And what he does after that moment of courage changes the family's destiny forever. Richard Sterling parked the black Mercedes in the garage of his Bel Air mansion and turned off the engine, but he didn't get out of the car immediately. He sat there observing through the glass the imposing white marble facade that gleamed under the afternoon Los Angeles sun. That house, with its 3 stories and impeccable gardens, had been designed to be a haven of happiness. In recent months, however, something had changed. A sense of unease weighed on his shoulders every time he passed through that electronic gate. He grabbed the leather briefcase from the seat beside him and finally opened the door. The November heat hit him like a wave. He crossed the front garden, where red roses bloomed in perfectly symmetrical flower beds, and climbed the steps to the main entrance. The key turned in the lock with a soft click. The silence that greeted him was unnatural. 6 months ago, when he came home, 4 high-pitched voices would shout his name in chorus. Sophia, Lucy, Mia, and Hannah would run through the entrance hall like little hurricanes of brown hair and honey-colored eyes, competing to see which one would hug him first. They were identical quadruplets, impossible to distinguish for those who didn't know them well, but Richard could identify each one by the unique sparkle in their eyes, their particular gestures, the distinct personalities that blossomed even at 6 years old. Now nothing, just the ticking of the wall clock in the hallway and the discreet hum of the air conditioning. Richard left his briefcase on the console table and walked towards the staircase. His Italian leather shoes echoed on the marble floor. When he reached the 2nd floor, he heard voices coming from the girls' room. He approached slowly, without making a sound. The door was ajar. Through the crack, he saw the 4 of them sitting on the pink rug, each with a coloring book in her lap. Veronica, his wife, was standing by the window scrolling on her phone. She wore a tight white dress that highlighted her slender silhouette, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders. When Richard pushed the door open, the effect was immediate and disturbing. The girls flinched. They didn't jump up to hug him, they didn't smile. Sophia, always the most expressive, quickly lowered her eyes. Lucy gripped her colored pencil so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Mia and Hannah moved closer to each other, shoulder to shoulder, as if seeking mutual protection. Veronica turned with a radiant smile. "Oh, darling, you're home early today," she said, putting her phone in her purse and walking towards him with measured steps. She kissed him on the cheek, a cold, mechanical kiss. "The girls are being so well behaved today, aren't you, dears?" The 4 nodded in silence without looking up from their books. Richard felt his stomach tighten. "Hi, my princesses," he said, trying to sound natural. "I'm going to change and come down. We can play later, okay?" None of them answered. They just nodded, small, restrained movements. Veronica followed him to the master bedroom at the end of the hall. When she closed the door, she sighed loudly. "They were terrible this morning, Richard. Tantrums, crying over nothing. I had to be firm. Children need boundaries, you know that." Richard loosened his tie, watching her in the mirror's reflection. "Firm how, Veronica?" She laughed, a sharp, artificial sound. "Oh, nothing much. Just put them in time out for an hour, after Sophia intentionally spilled juice on the table. You know how dramatic children can be, but now they're perfectly behaved." He turned to face her. "Intentionally spilled it. Sophia is careful. She wouldn't do that." Veronica crossed her arms. "Richard, you weren't here. You didn't see what happened. She looked right at me and knocked over the glass. It was pure defiance. I wasn't going to let it slide." The tension in the air was palpable. Richard took a deep breath, controlling the irritation that was beginning to simmer. "Veronica, they're 6 years old. They're children." "Exactly," she retorted, turning to leave. "That's why they need to learn respect now, before it's too late. Your first wife spoiled these girls rotten." The casual mention left Richard paralyzed. Veronica left the room before he could respond, closing the door with more force than necessary. Richard sat on the edge of the king-size bed and ran his hands over his face. He was tired. The day at the company had been long and filled with tense meetings. His construction firm was negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract with investors from Dubai, and every detail had to be perfect. But now, alone in that spacious room, decorated in shades of grey and white, he realized there was something far more important demanding his attention. The girls had been different for weeks. At first, he had attributed the change to a natural adjustment period. Veronica had entered their lives only 4 months ago, and adjustments were expected. But this went beyond an adaptation period. Sophia, who used to draw constantly, now barely touched her colored pencils. Lucy, always chatty and curious, had become almost mute. Mia, the bravest of the four, hid behind her sisters, and Hannah, the dreamer who invented fantastic stories, seemed to have forgotten how to smile. He changed out of his suit into casual clothes and went down to the first floor. The kitchen was empty, but he could hear movement in the dining room. He approached and stopped at the entrance, observing. The girls were seated at the enormous rosewood table, 4 chairs lined up on one side. Veronica was serving dinner. She placed a generous plate of lasagna in front of herself and tiny portions for each of the girls. Richard frowned. The portions were far too small, inadequate for growing children. "Veronica, I think the girls need more food than that," he said, entering the room. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "They had a big snack this afternoon, darling. I don't want them to get an upset stomach. Besides, we need to control their diet. American children are increasingly overweight. You see it in the statistics." The girls stared at their plates, saying nothing. Richard pulled out a chair and sat next to Hannah, the youngest by just a few minutes. He touched her shoulder gently. "How was your day, my love?" Hannah swallowed hard, glancing quickly at Veronica before answering. "It was good, Daddy." "Just good? What did you do?" "We played. We studied. It was normal." The response was mechanical, lifeless. Richard looked at the other 3. Sophia was pushing food around her plate without eating. Lucy's eyes were watery, but she blinked rapidly as if trying to hide it. Mia was biting her lower lip hard. Veronica ate elegantly, cutting the lasagna into small pieces and chewing slowly. "So, Richard, how was the meeting with the Arabs? Did you manage to close the deal?" He answered vaguely, his attention divided between the superficial conversation with his wife and the silent observation of his daughters. When Veronica stood up to get more wine from the kitchen, Richard leaned towards Sophia and whispered, "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" Sophia looked up. In her eyes, Richard saw something that chilled him to the bone. Fear. Genuine, profound fear. "Daddy," she began, her voice trembling, "the rules are different when you're not here." The simple sentence landed like a bomb. Before Richard could ask more, Veronica returned with the wine bottle. Sophia immediately fell silent, going back to pushing her food around without looking up. The rest of the dinner passed in a heavy silence. Richard tried to start conversations, ask questions, but received only monosyllabic answers. The girls ate quickly, picking up every last crumb from their plates as if they were starving. This disturbed him even more. When they finished, Veronica dismissed them with a wave of her hand. "You can go to your room, brush your teeth and put on your pajamas. I'll be up in 15 minutes to check." The 4 of them ran off, relieved to escape that table. Richard helped clear the plates, taking them to the kitchen where Martha, the cook who had worked at the house for years, was washing pans. She was a robust woman, with grey hair tied in a bun, who had always treated the girls with maternal affection. "Martha," he said quietly, "did the girls eat well during the day?" The woman hesitated, her hands still in the soapy water. "Mr. Sterling," she began, then stopped, looking nervously towards the door. "I don't want to cause any trouble. Please, I need to know." Martha dried her hands on her apron and came closer. "Mrs. Veronica has been controlling what they eat very closely. Small portions for breakfast, a light lunch. She says it's for their own good, but I can see the poor things are hungry. They come here in secret sometimes, asking for a piece of bread, a piece of fruit. I give it to them, of course, but I have to hide it because Mrs. Veronica reprimanded me once for it." Anger bubbled in Richard's chest. "And you didn't tell me?" Martha lowered her eyes. "I need this job, Mr. Sterling. I have bills to pay, a family to support. Mrs. Veronica made it clear she doesn't tolerate interference, but I swear I do what I can to help the little ones without losing my job." Richard touched her shoulder gently. "I understand. Thank you for telling me. Please, continue to look after them as best you can." He went up the stairs with a heavy heart. In the second-floor hallway, he stopped in front of the girl's bedroom door. It was closed. He leaned against it and listened. Veronica's voice was clear through the wood, cold and cutting. "When your father isn't here, I'm in charge. Understand? You will obey me without question. No crying, no complaining. If I find out that any of you have told him anything, the consequences will be worse, much worse." Silence. Then, a muffled sob. "Don't cry. There's no reason to cry. You have a beautiful house, nice clothes, food on your plate. You should be grateful. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow morning I want to wake up and see 4 perfectly behaved girls at the breakfast table." Richard moved away from the door before she opened it. He went into the office next door and shut himself in, his hands trembling. He sat in the leather chair behind the mahogany desk and took several deep breaths, trying to control the fury that threatened to explode. Sophia's words echoed in his mind. "The rules are different when Daddy's not here." He opened a drawer and took out his tablet. He needed to think, to plan. He couldn't just confront Veronica based on suspicions and fragments of conversations. She would deny everything, make it seem like he was overreacting, that the children were manipulating the situation. He knew women like her. They always had an explanation, always twisted the narrative. Richard spent the next 2 hours in his office, researching, reflecting. When he finally went to their bedroom, Veronica was already asleep, or pretending to be. He lay down on the other side of the king-size bed, keeping as much distance as possible. Before he closed his eyes, a decision had been made. He would find out the truth no matter what it took. His daughters depended on him. They were all he had left that was precious in the world, and he would not allow anyone, absolutely anyone, to hurt them. In the darkness of the room, Richard Sterling began to devise a plan that would change everything. Richard woke before dawn. The digital clock on the bedside table read 5:15 a.m. Beside him, Veronica slept soundly, her face relaxed against the silk pillow. He got up carefully so as not to wake her and went to the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. The dark circles under his eyes betrayed the restless night. He dressed in silence and went down to the office. He needed a solid plan, something that would reveal the truth without leaving room for doubt or manipulation. He sat down at the computer and began typing a list of options. Hidden cameras in the girls' room? No, that would be an invasion of his own daughter's privacy, and Veronica could claim he was being paranoid. Hire a private investigator. Too risky, too many people involved, too many chances for Veronica to find out. The sun was beginning to rise when the idea struck him. It was bold, almost absurd, but maybe that's exactly why it would work. If he couldn't observe from a distance, he would observe up close, very close. Inside his own house, but invisible, unnoticed, transformed into someone Veronica would never suspect. At 7 in the morning, he heard movement upstairs. He quickly put his notes in a locked drawer and went up to the bedroom. Veronica was already up, applying cream to her face in front of the closet mirror. "Good morning," he said, keeping his tone casual. She turned, smiling. "Good morning, darling. You're up early today." "I have a lot of work piled up. That contract with Dubai is more complicated than I thought." Veronica approached and adjusted the collar of his shirt. "You work too much, Richard. You should relax more, enjoy life. We have enough money for 3 generations." He forced a smile. "It's just my way. I like to stay busy." At breakfast, the girls were sitting at the table when Richard arrived. 4 plates with a thin slice of whole wheat bread and half a glass of orange juice. Nothing more. Veronica was serving herself a plate piled with fruit, Greek yogurt and granola. The girls eat lightly. "In the morning," she explained before Richard could ask. The pediatrician recommended a light breakfast so as not to overload their digestive systems. Richard knew this was a lie. The pediatrician had always recommended a hearty breakfast for growing children, but he said nothing. He just watched as Sophia, Lucy, Mia and Hannah ate slowly, stretching out that minimal meal as long as possible. After breakfast, he kissed each of his daughters on the forehead. "You are the most beautiful girls in the world," he whispered, so only they could hear. "Daddy loves you more than anything." Hannah clung to his arm. "Don't go, Daddy." The urgency in the little girl's voice broke his heart. "I have to work, my love, but I'll be back soon, I promise." In the car on the way to the office, Richard made a call. "Julian, I need to talk to you. It's urgent and confidential." Julian Croft had been his lawyer for 15 years, a discreet and efficient man who had helped him in various delicate situations. They met at the law firm an hour later. Richard told him everything. The changes in the girl's behavior, the minuscule food portions, Sophia's sentence, the conversation he had overheard through the door. Julian listened in silence, his fingers intertwined on the conference table. "You need concrete proof, Richard," the lawyer said when he finished. "Suspicions aren't enough in a divorce case. Veronica could claim you're making up stories to get rid of her without paying what the prenuptial agreement stipulates." "I know. That's why I need your help with something unusual." Richard explained his plan. Julian raised his eyebrows, impressed. "It's risky. If something goes wrong, it could backfire on you." "I'm willing to take the risk. My daughters are worth anything." The lawyer agreed. To help. He would prepare all the necessary documentation, maintain contact through an encrypted phone, and handle the legal details. They discussed every aspect of the plan for over 2 hours. When Richard returned home late that afternoon, he found a scene that confirmed his worst suspicions. Through the living room window, he saw the girls lined up against the wall, backs straight, while Veronica paced in front of them like a sergeant inspecting recruits. He entered through the front door, making deliberate noise, clattering his keys on the console table. The transformation was instantaneous. Veronica turned with a sweet smile, and the girls relaxed their tense shoulders. "Hi, darling," Veronica said, walking towards him. "We were just playing statue. The girls love it." Richard looked at his daughters. None of them looked like they were having fun. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Richard went down to the office again. He called a number Julian had given him. On the other end of the line, a male voice answered. "Hello? I'm calling on Julian Croft's recommendation. He said you can help me with an acting job." The man on the other end was Leo Vance, an experienced theatre actor who took on private jobs to supplement his income. Richard explained what he needed, a perfect imitation of his voice for phone calls. Leo would have to study his speech patterns, intonation, and vocabulary. "It's an interesting challenge," Leo said. "I'll need recordings of you speaking naturally and time to practice. You'll have everything. What's your fee?" Richard wouldn't haggle. He would pay whatever was necessary. In the following days, he maintained his normal routine while preparing everything behind the scenes. He recorded hours of casual conversations for Leo to study. He bought old, worn-out clothes from thrift stores in distant neighborhoods. He ordered a theatrical-quality fake beard that looked absolutely real. He met discreetly with Leo 3 times for final adjustments. At home, he observed everything with heightened attention. He started coming home early sometimes without warning. He always found the girls too quiet, too submissive. One afternoon, Hannah had a bruise on her arm. Veronica explained that she had fallen while playing in the garden, but Hannah neither confirmed nor denied it, just lowered her eyes. Richard also noticed subtle changes in the decor. The portraits of his late wife that had adorned the second floor, hallway were gone. The stuffed animals the girls loved were stored in the closet. The drawings that used to be hung on the refrigerator no longer appeared. Martha, the cook, began leaving him little notes. She would write quickly on folded pieces of paper and slip them into his suit pocket when Veronica wasn't looking. The girls asked for food 3 times today. Mrs. Veronica put them in time-out in their room for 2 hours. I heard shouting from upstairs. Each note was a stab to the heart. Richard kept them all, accumulating evidence. A week after starting the preparations, he was ready. The night before executing the plan, he had dinner with Veronica and the girls, trying to memorize every detail of those little faces. Sophia had a faint dimple on her chin. Lucy bit her lower lip when she was nervous. Mia blinked too fast when she was lying. Hannah hummed softly when she thought no one was listening. After dinner, he went up to say goodnight to them. He locked the bedroom door from the inside to have a few minutes alone. "Girls," he said, kneeling on the rug to be at their eye level. "Come here." The four of them approached hesitantly. Richard opened his arms and pulled them into a group hug. He felt their small bodies tense against his. "I know something is wrong," he whispered, "and I'm going to find out what it is. After that, everything will get better. You need to trust me, okay? No matter what happens in the next few days, remember that Daddy is taking care of you, always." Sophia started to cry. "Daddy, I'm scared." "You don't have to be scared. I promise I will protect you." "But she said if we tell, it will be worse." Hannah sobbed. The explicit confirmation hit him like a punch. He held back his tears. "No one will ever hurt you again. I swear on your mother's memory." They stayed there, hugging, for long minutes. When he finally left the room, Richard's eyes were red, but his heart was determined. The next morning he put the plan into action. At breakfast he announced casually, "Veronica, I'll need to travel to Dubai. The contract is stalled, and the investors want face-to-face meetings. I'll be there for a month." Veronica almost dropped her coffee cup. "A whole month?" "Unfortunately, you know what these Arabs are like. Business is done face-to-face over time, building trust. I can't send a representative." The girls looked at him with panic in their eyes. Richard avoided their gaze, knowing he couldn't explain anything yet. "When do you leave?" Veronica asked, and he noticed a strange glint in her eyes. Excitement? Relief? "The day after tomorrow. Everything's already arranged." He spent the rest of the day at the office, finalizing the last details. Julian gave him a tiny digital recorder, the size of a lighter that could be easily hidden. Leo assured him he was ready to make the daily phone calls. That night Richard could barely eat dinner. He looked at his daughters and at Veronica, knowing that in 48 hours everything would be different. He would return to that house, but no one would recognize him. He would be a ghost, an invisible observer in his own home. After everyone was asleep, he went down to the office one last time. He locked the door and opened the safe hidden behind the seascape painting. Inside, he placed a letter addressed to Julian. If something went wrong, if the plan failed in some catastrophic way, at least there would be a record of his intentions and discoveries. Richard Sterling went back to bed knowing he wouldn't sleep. And he didn't. He stayed awake all night, mentally planning every move for the days to come, silently praying that everything would work out, that he could save his girls from the nightmare they were living under his own roof. The day of the fake departure arrived with a cloudy sky over Los Angeles. Richard put 2 large suitcases in the trunk of the Mercedes, while Veronica watched from the porch. The girls were at school, which made everything both easier and harder. Easier because he didn't have to lie while looking into their eyes. Harder because he couldn't say a proper goodbye. Veronica came down the steps in a navy blue dress that accentuated her cold elegance. "Are you going to call me every day?" she asked, and there was something calculated in her question, as if she were testing him. "Of course. Even with the time difference, I'll find a good time for us to talk." She kissed him, a kiss without warmth, mechanical. "Be careful and don't worry about the girls. I'll take very good care of them." The words sounded like a veiled threat. Richard forced a smile. "I know you will. See you soon, Veronica." He got in the car and drove to the gate. In the rearview mirror, he saw Veronica waving. The moment the gate closed behind him, her mask of concern fell away and was replaced by a satisfied smile. Richard drove to a discreet hotel on the west side of the city, where Julian had already booked a room under a false name. He paid in cash, avoiding any traceable records. In the simple but clean room, he began the transformation. First, he applied special adhesive and attached the fake beard to his face. It was graying and full, completely changing his appearance. Then, he put on faded jeans, a worn plaid shirt, and old work boots. He put a frayed cap on his head. He looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize himself. He looked like he had aged 10 years and dropped several social classes. Julian arrived an hour later with fake documents. Richard was now John Smith, a 45-year-old self-employed gardener. He even had forged references from previous jobs at other Bel Air mansions. "This is illegal," Richard said, examining the documents. "Technically, yes, but you're doing it to protect your daughters. No judge will convict you for this when they know the truth." Richard put the documents in his back pocket. "And the phone?" Julian handed him a simple, prepaid cell phone. "Leo will call Veronica every day at 9 p.m. Pacific time. I trained him myself. The imitation is perfect. She won't suspect a thing. What if she asks for a video call? Leo will claim connection issues, or that he's in a meeting and only has time for a quick call. We've rehearsed every possible excuse." Richard took a deep breath. "Then it's time." Julian put a hand on his shoulder. "Are you sure about this? Once you start, there's no going back." "I'm absolutely sure." They left the hotel separately. Richard took a bus to a stop near his house, then walked the last few blocks. It was 4 in the afternoon when he rang the doorbell of his own mansion. A security camera focused on his unrecognizable face. Veronica's voice came through the intercom. "Yes?" "Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is John Smith. I'm here about the gardener position. The domestic services agency sent me." There was a pause. Veronica was probably checking with the agency, which was actually another of Julian's arrangements. A minute later, the gate opened. Richard entered the garden of his own home, his heart pounding. Every stone on the path, every rose bush, every tree was familiar, but now he was looking at it all from a completely different perspective. Veronica appeared at the main door. "Do you have experience with large gardens?" "I do, ma'am," Richard replied, keeping his voice deeper and more drawn out than usual. With a slight southern drawl he had practiced. "I've worked at several houses here in Bel Air. I do lawns, prune trees, plant flowers, whatever you need." She examined him from head to toe with barely concealed disdain. "Payment is weekly. You work Monday to Saturday, 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. You'll have lunch in the service area, not the main kitchen. You don't enter the house without permission. You don't speak to the children. Understood?" "Understood, ma'am." "Start tomorrow, 8 o'clock sharp. If you're late, you're fired." "You can count on it, ma'am. I'm punctual." Veronica went back inside without another word. Richard walked through the garden, inspecting it, memorizing every corner where he could hide to observe. There were dense bushes near the living room windows. The ancient tree in the backyard had branches that offered a good view of the second-floor windows. He left the property and returned to the hotel. That night at 9 o'clock sharp, Veronica's phone rang. Richard listened to the recording Leo sent him later. The imitation was impressive. "Hi, darling, how are you?" Leo's voice sounded exactly like his. "Richard, I miss you so much. How was the flight?" "Exhausting. 11 hours on a plane is terrible, but I arrived safely. The hotel is nice. The people from the Arab company were very welcoming." "And the girls, are they missing you?" "I'm sure they are. I start meetings early tomorrow. It might be a few days before I can call again properly." "It's okay, dear. Don't worry. Everything is under control here." The call lasted 5 minutes. When it ended, Richard breathed a sigh of relief. It had worked perfectly. The next morning, he woke before 6. He reattached the beard, put on the gardener's clothes, and took a taxi to a spot 3 blocks from the mansion. He walked the rest of the way. At 8 o'clock sharp, he rang the doorbell. A man in a uniform opened the gate. It was Mark, the security guard who had been working there for a few months. He examined Richard without recognizing him. "You the new gardener?" "I am, John Smith. Tools are in the shed out back. The lady of the house is still sleeping. Don't make any noise." Richard nodded and headed to the shed. Inside, he grabbed a lawnmower and started working. The sun was already strong when he heard voices coming from the house. He glanced, discreetly, and saw the girls leaving for school. They were wearing identical uniforms, pink backpacks on their shoulders. Veronica was walking them to the school van parked at the entrance. "Behave at school," he heard Veronica say. "No tantrums, no crying. Or when you get back, you'll go straight to your room without a snack." The girls nodded silently and got into the van. Richard had to control the urge to run to them, hug them, tell them he was there. But he couldn't. Not yet. During the morning he worked in the front garden. He mowed the lawn, watered. The flowers cleaned up the dry leaves. Every now and then he saw Veronica through the windows. She was talking on the phone, laughing loudly, seeming completely relaxed. At noon, Martha appeared at the kitchen door. "John, lunch is ready. You can eat in the service area." "Thank you, ma'am." He entered the service area for the first time as the gardener of his own home. Martha placed a simple plate on the table. Rice, beans, a piece of meat, and salad. "How's the job here?" he asked casually. Martha looked around before answering. "It's complicated. The boss is very demanding, especially with the children. She has children, 4 girls, quadruplets. They're little angels, poor things, but the stepmother is hard on them." Richard feigned surprise. "Stepmother? Does their father live here?" "He does, but he's traveling abroad for work. He'll be gone for a month." Martha lowered her voice. "I'm scared of what will happen to the girls while he's away." "Why?" Martha hesitated, then shook her head. "Never mind. I shouldn't talk about the family's business." Richard didn't press. He finished his lunch in silence and went back to the garden. He spent the afternoon working in the back near the large tree. From there he had a privileged view of the second-floor windows. At 3 in the afternoon, the school van returned. The girls got out and went into the house. Minutes later, he heard shouting. Veronica's voice echoed, even with the windows closed. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Anger, contempt, cruelty. Richard clenched his hands around the rake he was holding. Every fiber of his being wanted to storm that house and protect his daughters. But he needed proof. He needed to see everything, record everything. At 5 in the afternoon, he put away his tools and left. He passed through the gate where Mark watched him with disinterest. He returned to the hotel, exhausted physically and emotionally. That night at 9, Leo called Veronica again. Richard listened to the recording later. They talked about trivial things. She said the girls were fine. He said the meetings were progressing. In the following days, Richard established a routine. He arrived at 8, worked in the garden, had lunch with Martha, and observed everything he could. He started carrying the digital recorder hidden in his pocket, on at all times. On the 3rd day, he witnessed the first scene that confirmed his worst fears. He was trimming bushes near the living room window when he heard a loud crash. He looked discreetly and saw Sophia on the floor, her hand to her forehead. Veronica stood over her, her face contorted with rage. "You clumsy girl, you spilled water on the table again. How many times do I have to tell you to be careful?" "It was an accident," Sophia cried. "Please, ma'am, it was an accident." "An accident?" Veronica pulled her up by the arm forcefully. "You do it on purpose to annoy me. You're going to your room until dinner. No snack, no water, no nothing." Sophia was dragged upstairs. The other 3 girls who were sitting on the sofa cowered in fear. Richard recorded every word, every shout, every sob. His hands were shaking so much he had to lean against the windowsill. To see that and not be able to intervene was a torture beyond anything he had ever experienced. But he held firm. Every day of silence, every moment of painful testimony was building the case that would free his daughters forever. The first week as a disguised gardener was the longest of Richard's life. Every morning he woke up in the hotel room with the weight of the mission on his shoulders. He would attach the fake beard, with hands that had already memorized every move, put on the worn clothes that now smelled of earth and sweat, and set off for another day of silent surveillance. On the 5th day, he witnessed something that almost made him abandon his disguise. He was cleaning dry leaves from the swimming pool when he heard Veronica calling the girls. "Get over here now," her sharp voice echoed through the garden. The 4 of them appeared on the back porch, heads bowed. "I told you to tidy your room before coming down. I went in there and it's a mess. Do you think I'm your maid?" "We did tidy it, ma'am," Lucy said timidly. "The beds are made. The toys are put away." Veronica descended the steps quickly and grabbed Lucy's arm. "Are you calling me a liar? The beds are crooked. The pillows are messy. Is that tidy to you?" Richard could see everything from where he was, hidden behind the pool filter. The digital recorder in his pocket was capturing every word. "Go back up there and do it again and again and again until it's perfect. If I have to go up one more time and it's not impeccable, you'll sleep without mattresses tonight, on the hard floor. Maybe then you'll learn to do things right." The girls ran inside. Veronica stood on the porch, lit a cigarette and blew the smoke out slowly, a satisfied smile on her lips. Richard gripped the handle of the pool net so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He took several deep breaths, controlling the fury that was boiling inside him. Later, when Veronica went inside, he discreetly approached the window of the girls' room on the second floor. From below, by climbing the maintenance ladder that was leaning against the wall, he could hear. The four of them were remaking the beds for the third time. Sophia was crying softly. "I can't take it anymore. I want Daddy back." "He'll be back soon," Mia whispered. "Just a few more weeks." "But what if she doesn't let him in? What if she sends him away too?" Hannah asked with a trembling voice. "Daddy won't leave. He promised he loves us." "More than anything," Lucy said, but her own voice showed doubt. Richard climbed down from the ladder with a shattered heart. His daughters weren't just afraid of Veronica. They were starting to doubt him, thinking he had abandoned them. That night, at the hotel, he almost called Julian to ask to speed up the process. But he knew he needed more proof, more recordings, an absolutely irrefutable case. On the seventh day, he met someone who would change everything. It was Saturday morning, and Richard was planting new azalea seedlings in the front flower bed when a young woman arrived. Through the gate, she was about 30 with black hair tied in a ponytail, her expression serious but kind. "Good morning," she greeted. "Are you the new gardener?" "I am, John." "Pleasure, John. I'm Beatrice, the girl's new nanny." Richard stood up, wiping the dirt from his hands. "Oh, you just started working here recently?" 2 weeks ago. Beatrice looked at the house with an expression he couldn't decipher. "It's a beautiful place, but it has a heavy energy." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Never mind, it was just a feeling." Beatrice went into the house. For the rest of the morning, Richard watched her through the windows. She interacted with the girls affectionately, played with them, smiled. But whenever Veronica appeared, the girls would flinch, and Beatrice would adopt a more formal posture. At lunchtime, Beatrice appeared in the service area where Richard was eating. Martha served her a plate and she sat down at the table next to him. "The boss went out to lunch with friends," Martha commented. "She won't be back until tonight." "Good," Beatrice sighed. "At least the girls can relax a little." "Are they difficult children?" Richard asked casually. Beatrice looked at him intently. "No, they are little angels, polite, intelligent, sensitive. The problem isn't them." Martha coughed, a clear warning. Beatrice understood and changed the subject. "John, do you have children?" "I do. 3. They're grown now." "Were they easy when they were little?" "They were, but I always treated them with patience and love. A child needs love, not fear." Beatrice smiled for the first time, and Richard saw something in that smile. Complicity, understanding. Exactly. A child who lives in fear doesn't develop properly. They become insecure, withdrawn. They finished their lunch and returned to their duties. Richard kept thinking about that conversation. There was something about Beatrice, something familiar, a determination similar to his own. In the afternoon, he was working in the backyard when he heard voices coming from the garden. Beatrice was sitting on the grass with the 4 girls. They were drawing with crayons on large sheets of paper. "This is Daddy," Sophia said, showing a stick figure drawing. "That's very nice," Beatrice praised. "He must be very special to you." "He is. He's the best dad in the world, but he went away." "He didn't go away. He went to work. He'll be back." "What if she doesn't let him come back?" Mia asked, her voice barely audible. Beatrice hugged Mia. "No one can stop a father from seeing his daughters. That's impossible. He will come back. You can trust me." Richard had to move away before they saw him with tears in his eyes. He hid behind the tool shed until he regained his composure. When he was putting away his equipment at the end of the day, Beatrice appeared. The girls were already inside taking their baths. She looked around to make sure they were alone. "John, can I Ask you a strange question. Of course. Have you ever worked in homes where children were mistreated? The question caught him by surprise. He thought quickly before answering. I have. Once I worked in a house where the boss was very hard on her son. I couldn't stay, I quit. And the boy, what happened to him? I don't know. I hope someone helped him. Beatrice nodded slowly. Sometimes we see things we shouldn't see, and we're faced with a dilemma. Interfering could cost us our job, but staying quiet could cost something much greater. Richard looked at her. What are you trying to tell me? She took a deep breath. I'm saying that if you see something wrong happening in this house, I hope you won't stay silent. Some things are more important than a job. Before he could answer, she turned and went into the house. Richard returned to the hotel that night with his mind racing. Beatrice suspected something. Maybe she even knew things he hadn't discovered yet. She was a potential ally, but also a risk. If she found out who he really was, the whole plan could fall apart. On Sunday, his only day off, Richard stayed in the hotel reviewing all the recordings. He had hours of material. Veronica yelling at the girls. Veronica withholding food as punishment. Veronica forcing them to clean and tidy obsessively. But he still didn't have the definitive moment, the one that would be undeniable in any court. On Monday, he returned to the mansion determined to get more evidence. He arrived early and started working on the herb garden that Veronica had asked him to install. From there, he had a direct view of the kitchen. At 8 in the morning, Veronica came down with the girls for breakfast. Richard discreetly turned on the recorder and paid close attention. Martha had made pancakes, and the sweet smell filled the kitchen. Veronica served herself 4 pancakes covered in syrup and strawberries. For each girl, she placed half a dry pancake with no topping. Can I have syrup too, Mom? Sophia asked timidly. No, too much sugar is bad for you. You already eat too many sweets. But you're having syrup, Lucy pointed out. The slap was quick and loud. Veronica hit Lucy's face with her open palm. Don't question me, I'm an adult, I do what I want. You are children, and you will eat what I tell you to eat. Lucy brought a hand to her cheek, her eyes wide with shock and pain. The other 3 were frozen. And if I hear one more complaint about food, no one gets lunch today. Understood? The 4 nodded silently, tears streaming down their faces. Richard recorded everything. His hands were shaking so much he had to lean against the shed wall. This was physical assault. He had proof of physical assault now, but a part of him still wanted more, wanted to document every aspect of Veronica's cruelty before revealing himself. After the girls went to school, Beatrice arrived to organize the afternoon's activities. Richard found her in the garden and, on an impulse, decided to take a risk. Miss Beatrice, can I speak with you for a moment? She stopped watering the plants. Of course, John. Those girls, he began carefully, they seem very frightened. Beatrice studied him for a long moment. They are, and with good reason. Do you know what's happening? I know some things. I see others. I hear even more. She lowered her voice. Their stepmother is a cruel person. She treats those children like they're soldiers in training, not like 6-year-old girls who lost their mother not long ago. Why don't you do something? What can I do? Report it without proof. She'll deny everything, fire me, and the girls will be left with no one to protect them when I'm not here. Richard nodded slowly. So you're gathering proof? Beatrice smiled sadly. I'm doing what I can, protecting them when I can. There was a connection here, a mutual understanding Richard hadn't expected. He and this woman were on the same side, fighting for the same cause even without truly knowing each other. The relationship between the disguised Richard and Beatrice evolved naturally over the next few days. They didn't speak openly about Veronica, but they exchanged knowing glances when they witnessed something disturbing. It was as if they had formed a silent alliance in defense of the girls. On Tuesday, Richard was pruning the rose bushes when he heard shouting from the second floor. He dropped the pruning shears and moved closer to the window. Beatrice was running up the stairs. He followed until he was under the window of the girls' room. Veronica's voice echoed, full of venom. You are. Hole so sloppy. Look at this closet, the clothes are all wrinkled. I folded everything yesterday, and today it's all just thrown in. Ma'am, please, It was Beatrice's voice. "They're children. It's normal for a closet to get a little messy." "Normal?" Veronica laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. "In my house, there's no such thing as normal for a child. There is discipline. There is order. These four need to learn that actions have consequences." "But they already tidied it once this morning," Beatrice insisted. "I saw them. The closet was organized. Then they messed it up on purpose, which says even worse. It shows they're defiant." Richard heard heavy footsteps, then the sound of something being dragged. He peeked through the window and saw Veronica pulling all the clothes out of the closet and throwing them on the floor. "Now you're going to fold everything again, every single piece, and you'll do it right this time, or I'll throw all these clothes in the trash and you'll be left with just your school uniforms. Understood?" The girls were huddled in the corner of the room holding each other. Sophia was crying silently. Mia's face was red with suppressed anger. Lucy was biting her lower lip until it nearly bled. Hannah was hiding her face in Sophia's shoulder. Beatrice took a step forward. "Mrs. Veronica, I can help them. It will be faster." "You will not help at all. They have to learn on their own. And you, since you're defending these spoiled brats so much, will stay here and supervise. If a single piece is folded crookedly, you lose your day off this week." "But, Mum, I have an important appointment on Thursday." "You should have thought of that before you questioned my decisions." Veronica turned and left, slamming the door. Richard recorded everything. When Veronica came downstairs, he quickly returned to the rose bushes, pretending to be focused on pruning. She walked past him without a glance, got in her car, and drove off. Probably to another lunch with her friends, while leaving 4 terrified children at home. He waited a few minutes and then went to the service area. Martha was preparing lunch, but her face was tense. "Mrs. Martha, is everything all right?" She shook her head. "I can't stand to see it anymore, John. Those girls are so little, so fragile. Their mother was such a lovely person. If she saw what was happening, she would be devastated. Their mother passed away a year and a half ago. It was very sad. She was young, full of life. The girls were heartbroken. Mr. Richard, too. He was so in love with her." Martha wiped away a tear. "And now this woman shows up and destroys everything good in this house." Richard had to look away to hide his emotion. "How does their father not notice what's happening? He works a lot, comes home late, leaves early. And that viper is clever. In front of him, she's all sweet and attentive with the girls. They're so scared they don't say anything. But he's traveling now, right? For a month." "Exactly. I'm praying the girls can hold on until he gets back." Martha served Richard's lunch. "Sometimes I think about calling him, telling him everything. But she would probably fire me before I could, and then the girls would be left with no one." "You're a good person, Mrs. Martha. I'm sure you're doing the best you can." After lunch, Richard discreetly went up the service stairs that led to the second floor. The door to the girls' room was ajar. He peeked in carefully. Beatrice was sitting on the rug with the 4 girls. They were folding clothes slowly, with mechanical movements of exhaustion. Beatrice was helping surreptitiously, grabbing a few pieces and folding them too. "Beatrice," Hannah whispered, "do you think Daddy forgot about us?" "Of course not, my love. Your father loves you more than anything in the world. He's working to give you a good life." "But he's been gone for so long," Mia said. "It feels like forever." "I know it does, but he will come back. And when he comes back, everything will get better. You have to trust that." "What if she doesn't let him come back?" Sophia asked, using the formal address Veronica demanded. "No one can stop a father from seeing his daughters. That's impossible." "But she said if we tell him anything, she'll send us away. She'll put us in a place where no one will ever see us again," Lucy revealed, her voice trembling. Richard felt his blood run cold. That threat was new, something he hadn't recorded yet. Beatrice also turned pale. "Listen to me carefully," she said firmly, holding the hands of the 4 girls. "No one is going to send you anywhere. I won't let them. Your father won't let them. You are safe here, do you understand?" "But you're just the nanny," Mia said with painful logic. "She can fire you too." "She can. But before I go, I will make sure you are protected. I promise you that." Richard silently descended the stairs. That conversation changed everything. Veronica wasn't just physically and emotionally abusing the girls. She was making threats of abandonment, using the fear of the unknown to keep them silent. He worked in the garden for the rest of the afternoon, but his mind was racing. He needed to act soon. Every day that passed was another day of suffering for his daughters. When he was putting away his tools, Beatrice appeared again. She looked exhausted, her face pale, her eyes red. "Tough day?" he asked. "You have no idea." Beatrice sat on the wooden bench near the shed. "John, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I once worked in another house where something similar was happening. A wealthy family, beautiful children, but the mother was an alcoholic and took everything out on her kids. I was young, just graduated with a degree in education, full of ideals. I saw horrible things and did nothing. I was afraid of losing my job, afraid of not being believed." She paused, her voice choked with emotion. "One of the boys ended up in the hospital. A broken arm, bruises all over his body. That's when I woke up and reported it. But it was too late. The damage was already done." "And what happened?" "The mother entered a rehabilitation program. The children went to live with their father, who had divorced her. But that boy was never the same. He had nightmares, panic attacks around adults." Beatrice looked at Richard. "I swore that day that I would never again stay silent in the face of cruelty against a child, no matter the cost." "You're very brave." "I'm not. I'm a coward trying to redeem herself. But these 4 girls here, they remind me of those boys. The same fear in their eyes, the same tension in their bodies, and I will not fail again." Richard felt a deep connection to this woman. She was risking everything for his daughters, without even knowing he was their father. "Ms. Beatrice," he said carefully, "if you need help and ally, you can count on me." She studied him for a long moment. "Why do you care so much? They're just your employer's children." "Because children must be protected. It doesn't matter whose child they are, and because I see that you're alone in this fight. No one should have to fight alone." Beatrice extended her hand. "Thank you, John." They shook hands, sealing an alliance that would be crucial in the days to come. That night, Richard called Julian from a payphone. "I need to speed this up. I can't stand to see my daughters suffer anymore. Richard, 1 more week. Just 1 more week of recordings and you'll have an absolutely undeniable case. Any judge who sees this material will grant you full custody and a permanent restraining order against Veronica." "A week can be an eternity for a suffering child." "I know. But if you reveal yourself now without sufficient proof, she could turn everything around. She could claim you set it all up, that you're trying to get rid of her. You need to be patient just a little longer." Richard slammed his hand against the phone booth. "Fine, 1 more week, but not a day longer." The next morning, he returned to the mansion determined to capture every second of abuse. He arrived earlier than usual and saw something he shouldn't have. Veronica was on the bedroom balcony, talking on the phone. He hid behind the car in the garage, the recorder on. "Darling, I know you're busy, but I just needed to hear your voice," Veronica was saying, her tone syrupy and false. "The girls are fine, yes. Behaved as always. Don't worry about a thing over there. Enjoy your meetings, close that billion-dollar deal. When you get back, everything will be perfect here." A pause as she listened to the reply. "I love you too, bye darling." She hung up, and the sweet smile vanished instantly, replaced by an expression of disdain. "Idiot," she muttered. "Believes everything I say. Rich men are all the same, blind and stupid." Richard recorded everything. Veronica's mask was slipping more and more, and he was documenting every moment of the fall. The second weekend arrived with heavy rain over Los Angeles. Richard spent Saturday in the hotel reviewing all the collected recordings. He had almost 15 hours of material now. Veronica yelling, insulting, threatening. The girls crying, begging, apologizing for things they hadn't done. Beatrice trying to protect, intervene, mitigate. But he knew he needed more. He needed visual proof, something that would leave no doubt about the nature of the abuse. The audio recordings were powerful, but images would be irrefutable. On Monday, he returned to the mansion with a tiny camera hidden in his cap. It was the size of a button and recorded in high definition. Julian had obtained the equipment through contacts in the private security market. The day started normally. Veronica left for the gym at 9 in the morning. The girls were at school. Richard took the opportunity to install a second camera in the garden, hidden among the foliage of a climbing vine that faced the dining room window. From there, it would have a perfect view of the table where meals took place. Beatrice arrived at noon. She seemed more tense than usual. Richard found her in the kitchen talking with Martha. "She's getting worse," Beatrice was saying. "Last night she called me 3 times complaining about absurd things. Said the girls were crying too much and it was my fault for spoiling. Said them during the day." "You don't spoil anyone," Martha replied. "You're the only person who treats those children like human beings." "I'm afraid of what she'll do when her husband gets back, if he finds out how she really treats the girls." "If he finds out? If?" Martha scoffed. "How is he going to find out if the girls are terrified to tell him?" Richard coughed softly to announce his presence. The 2 women turned, startled. "Sorry to interrupt, just came to get some water." Martha poured him a glass. The women exchanged nervous glances but didn't continue the conversation. Richard drank slowly, watching through the window. Veronica had just arrived, getting out of her car with shopping bags. She entered the kitchen like a whirlwind. "Martha, are those clothes I asked you to wash ready?" "They are, Ma'am. Ironed and put away in the closet." "Good. Beatrice, how long until the girls get here?" "About half an hour. Prepare a light snack. No sweets or junk." Veronica looked at Richard as if only just noticing his presence. "You gardener? Is that herb garden finished?" "It's almost done, Ma'am. Another 2 days or so. I need it finished today. I'm hosting a dinner party next week, and I want to show off the fresh herbs." "I'll do my best, Ma'am. I don't want your best. I want it done." Veronica left with the bags. Richard went back to the garden, but his attention was divided. At 3 in the afternoon, the school van pulled up. The girls got out slowly, their backpacks heavy on their shoulders. He could see they were exhausted. Beatrice greeted them at the door with hugs. They clung to her like shipwreck survivors to a life raft. "How was school?" "Tiring," Sophia answered. "We had a math test." "And I got 1 question wrong," Mia added, fear visible in her eyes. "She's going to be mad." "Of course not. 1 wrong question isn't the end of the world." Veronica appeared in the hall behind Beatrice. "Got a question wrong? Which one? Let me see that test." Mia pulled the crumpled paper from her backpack with trembling hands. Veronica snatched it from her and examined it. "A B-. You got a B- for a silly calculation error. This is unacceptable." "Ma'am, it was just 1 mistake." Beatrice tried to intervene. "She got all the others right." "A mistake is a mistake. It shows a lack of attention, carelessness." Veronica tore the test in half. "You will not have a snack today. You will go to your room and redo these exercises until you get them all right, 50 times each." "But that's so many questions," Mia protested, tears already starting to fall. "It will take hours." "Then you'd better get started, hadn't you? And your sisters will help you. You will all do the exercises. If one of you makes a mistake, you all pay. That way you learn teamwork." Richard filmed everything with the camera in, his cap. He saw the girls' small hands trembling as they picked up their backpacks and went upstairs. Beatrice followed them, her face a mask of anger. He continued working on the herb garden, but his heart was on the 2nd floor of that house, with his daughters who were paying for minor mistakes with disproportionate punishments. An hour later he heard shouting. He dropped the hoe and ran closer to the window. Veronica was in the girls' room, holding notebooks. "This is wrong, all of it is wrong. Can't you even add properly, you stupid girl?" she was yelling at Mia. Beatrice stepped between them. "Mrs. Veronica, please, she's trying. She's a 6-year-old child." "Exactly, it should be easy, but she's lazy. They're all lazy." Veronica threw the notebooks on the floor. "You will do them again, from the beginning, and you will not have dinner until you finish everything perfectly." "But it's 7 o'clock at night. They need to eat," Beatrice insisted. "They will eat when they deserve to eat." Veronica's voice was pure ice. "And you will stop questioning me in front of them, or you will go without dinner as well. In fact, you know what? You're fired." The silence that followed was heavy. Beatrice turned pale. The girls started to cry. "No, please," Sophia begged. "She didn't do anything wrong." "Shut up. No one asked for your opinion." Veronica pointed to the door. "Beatrice, get your things and leave. Now." "Mrs. Veronica, I need this job. I have bills to pay. You should have thought of that before you disrespected me. Get out before I call security." Beatrice looked at the girls, the conflict clear on her face. Richard could see she was torn between needing the job and wanting to protect the children. Finally, she knelt in front of the four of them. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "Be strong, your father will be back soon." She left the room with her back straight and her head held high, but Richard saw the tears streaming down her face as she passed the window. He followed her discreetly to the gate. "Beatrice," she turned, wiping her eyes. "John, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lost my temper like that. You didn't lose your temper. You defended helpless children. And I got fired for it. Now they're alone with that woman. They won't be alone for much longer. Trust me." Beatrice looked at him intently. "There's something about you that isn't what it seems. I don't know what it is, but I feel like you have a plan." Richard hesitated, then decided to take a chance. "I do, and it's going to work. But I need you to keep it a secret for a few more days." "A secret about what?" "About everything you've seen here. Don't tell anyone yet, especially not the authorities. It could ruin everything." "You're asking me to stay silent while those girls suffer. I'm asking you to trust that they will be saved very soon, sooner than you think." Beatrice studied his face for a long moment. "All right, I'll trust you. But if nothing changes in a week, I'm going to the authorities with everything I know." "That's fair. Thank you." She walked out the gate and disappeared down the street. Richard went back to the garden but couldn't continue working. He climbed the maintenance ladder every 15 minutes to peek into the girls' bedroom window. They were sitting around the low table, doing exercises under the watchful supervision of Veronica, who was sitting in an armchair reading a magazine. Every time one of them made a mistake, Veronica made them start all over again. At 9 o'clock the girls were still working. They hadn't had dinner. Richard could see the exhaustion on their pale little faces, their small hands trembling with fatigue and hunger. It was the last straw. He climbed down the ladder, put away his tools with mechanical movements, and left the mansion. In the car, on the way to the hotel, he called Julian. "It's over. I can't take it anymore. I'm revealing myself tomorrow." "Richard, calm down. 3 more days, just 3 more days, and we have the perfect case." "No, tomorrow. My daughters are not going to spend another night suffering because of me." Julian sighed. "All right, then let's do it right. Tomorrow I'll arrange something special. You'll reveal yourself, but it will be in the most impactful way possible, something that no lawyer of Veronica's can counter." "What do you have in mind?" Julian explained the plan. It was risky, theatrical, but absolutely brilliant. Richard listened to every detail and agreed. "Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow is when everything changes." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He lay on the hotel bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything he had witnessed over the past 2 weeks. Every scream, every tear, every moment of his daughter's terror was recorded not just on electronic devices, but in his soul. In the morning, he woke with the sunrise. He took a long shower, attached the beard for the last time, and put on the gardener's clothes. But this time there was a difference. He knew this would be the last day of the disguise, the last day of silence, the last day Veronica would have power over his daughters. As he drove towards the mansion, a single word echoed in his mind like a mantra. Today. Today it would all end. Today the truth would come to light. Today his girls would be free. Richard arrived at the mansion at 8 in the morning sharp. Julian was already positioned in a discreet car 3 houses down, monitoring everything by phone. The plan was in motion. Today was the day Veronica was hosting a luncheon for her friends, something she had mentioned casually to Martha days ago. Julian had discovered through his investigations that this type of event was perfect for Veronica, to display the girls like trophies, showing how well-behaved and disciplined they were. Mark opened the gate with the usual nod. "Morning, John. The boss is on edge today. Has an important lunch and wants everything perfect." "I'll do my part," Richard replied, keeping his tone casual. He went straight to the front garden where he began trimming the bushes with meticulous precision. The camera in his cap was on, the recorder in his pocket too. Every second would be documented. At 9 o'clock, a truck from a catering company parked in front of the house. 3 employees got out carrying boxes of food and floral arrangements. Veronica supervised everything with a tense expression, giving quick orders and constant criticism. "These are not the flowers I ordered. I asked for pink roses, not salmon." "Sorry, Mum, but the order says salmon," one of the employees replied, showing her the paper. "Then the order was wrong. Bring me pink roses by noon or I'm cancelling the payment." The man sighed but agreed, returning to the truck to make calls. Richard watched everything while pretending to be focused on the bushes. Veronica was even more controlling than usual. The luncheon was clearly important to her, an opportunity to impress, to show off her perfect life. At 10 o'clock, the girls came down for breakfast. They were wearing identical lavender-colored dresses, their hair pulled back in perfect ponytails. They looked like porcelain dolls, beautiful but lifeless. Richard discreetly moved closer to the dining room window. He could hear Veronica's voice through the glass. "Today you will behave perfectly. My friends will be here, and I will not tolerate any mistakes, any crying, any nonsense. You will sit, smile when told, greet them politely, and remain silent unless someone asks you a direct question. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the 4 replied in unison. "If any of you embarrass me today, the consequences will be severe. You will be locked in your room for a week. No toys, no television, just studying and sleeping. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." Richard filmed the entire scene. The way the girls' shoulders slumped, how they avoided looking Veronica in the eye, how their little hands trembled holding their forks. It wasn't discipline, it was pure terror. After breakfast, Veronica sent them back to their room to wait until lunchtime. "You will come down when I call, and remember perfect behavior." The girls went upstairs in a single file, silent as ghosts. Richard went back to work, but his heart was racing. Julian had assured him that everything was prepared. Beatrice was now part of the plan too. Julian had contacted her the previous night and explained everything. She had been shocked to discover that the gardener was actually the girl's father, but had immediately agreed to help. At noon, the cars began to arrive. 5 elegant women got out, all wearing designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and flawless makeup. Veronica greeted them with air kisses and false smiles. "Darling, what a marvelous house," one of them exclaimed. "Thank you, Patricia. Make yourselves at home." They went inside and were soon seated in the dining room, where the table was set with fine china and crystal glasses. Veronica served champagne while they chatted about frivolous topics: trips, shopping, gossip about others in their social circle. Richard positioned himself strategically near the window, trimming rose bushes that were already perfect. From there, he could hear and film everything. "And the stepdaughters? How is the experience of being a stepmother?" one of the women asked. Veronica smiled, but there was a sharpness to it. "It's a challenge, I confess. 4 girls at once, all with strong personalities. But I've managed to raise them properly. Discipline is key, you know. My mother always said that children need clear boundaries and consequences when they cross them." "I completely agree," another woman said. "Children today are so spoiled. Parents are afraid to be firm." "Exactly. My husband is wonderful, but he pities them too much. It's normal, right? They're his daughters. But someone has to be the responsible adult." The women laughed and agreed. Richard recorded every word, the hypocrisy in every syllable. Martha began to serve lunch, a salad with fine greens, grilled fish, roasted vegetables. Everything presented with 5-star restaurant perfection. It was then that Veronica called out, "Girls, please come down." Richard heard soft footsteps on the stairs. The 4 of them appeared at the entrance to the dining room, lined up like soldiers. Veronica made an imperious gesture. "Come and greet my friends." They entered one by one, extending a delicate hand to each woman. "A pleasure to meet you, ma'am," they said in small, polite voices. "Oh, how lovely," Patricia exclaimed. "They really are identical." "Quadruplets," Veronica explained, pride in her voice. "Sophia, Lucy, Mia, and Hannah. All very well behaved and polite. The women asked basic questions. What's your favorite subject in school? What do you like to play? The girls answered with short, formal sentences, devoid of any genuine enthusiasm. Richard's heart was breaking. His daughters were acting, playing the role of perfect children while hiding the terror they felt. Very good, girls. Now go back to your room and wait until I call you for dessert. Veronica dismissed them with a wave of her hand. They left obediently. The friends praised their manners. You've done a wonderful job, Veronica. They must have been a lot of trouble at first. They were, but I knew I had to establish authority from the beginning. My method is simple. Strict discipline, rare rewards, consistent punishments. Veronica took a sip of wine. Children respond to structure. Love is important, of course, but fear is more efficient. Fear maintains order. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. One of the women, who had been quiet until then, frowned. Fear? Doesn't that seem a bit extreme? Veronica laughed. Not traumatic fear, darling, just the healthy kind of respect that comes from knowing there are consequences. The children know that if they disobey, there will be punishment. Simple as that. Richard couldn't believe what he was hearing. She was confessing openly, thinking she was just sharing parenting techniques with friends. The lunch continued for another hour. The women ate, drank, and laughed. Veronica was relaxed, fueled by social validation and wine. She talked about how she had transformed the girls into obedient children, how she didn't tolerate crying or tantrums, how she maintained absolute control over their food and activities. One of the friends, named Eleanor, seemed increasingly uncomfortable. During a pause, she asked calmly, "Veronica, these girls lost their mother not long ago, didn't they? Don't you think they need more affection than discipline right now?" Veronica's smile faltered. "Their mother passed away almost 2 years ago. Enough time has passed. Life goes on. They need to adapt to the new reality. But they're children. Childhood grief is different. Eleanor, I appreciate your concern, but I assure you I know what I'm doing." Veronica refilled her glass. "These girls are fine, healthy, polite, with everything they need." Richard sensed the growing tension. Eleanor didn't seem convinced, but she didn't press further. The other women quickly changed the subject. After lunch, Veronica called the girls again, this time to serve dessert to the guests. They appeared carrying small platters of fine pastries. They walked slowly, concentrating so as not to drop anything. It was in that moment that disaster struck. Sophia tripped on the Persian rug. The platter flew from her hands, and the pastries scattered across the marble floor. The noise was loud. All eyes turned to the little girl, who was frozen in terror. Veronica shot up from her chair so fast it almost tipped over. Her face was red with rage. "You clumsy, useless girl," she hissed. The other 3 girls dropped their platters on the table and ran to Sophia's side, forming a protective barrier. "It was an accident, ma'am," Sophia cried. "I tripped. It was an accident." "An accident? An accident?" Veronica advanced towards her. I warned you that any mistake today would have consequences. You've embarrassed me in front of my friends." The guests watched in shocked silence. Richard tightened his fist around the handle of his pruning shears. It was happening. The moment Julian had predicted. Veronica raised her hand in the air, preparing to strike Sophia. The girl cowered, shielding her face with her arms. Her sisters screamed. The guests rose from their chairs, horrified. It was at that instant that the doorbell rang. The moment froze. Veronica lowered her hand, breathing heavily. "Mark! Get the door!" she yelled. Seconds later, Mark appeared at the door of the room. "Ma'am, there's a woman here who says she forgot something when she worked here. A Beatrice something." Veronica spun on her heel. "Beatrice, that incompetent nanny I fired? Tell her to go away." "She says it's important. Something about the children's documents that were in her purse." Veronica snorted in irritation. "Fine. Let her in. But make it quick." Beatrice entered the dining room with a confident posture. She glanced quickly at the girls huddled near Sophia, at the pastries on the floor, at Veronica with rage stamped on her face. "Sorry to interrupt, but I really need to get some papers I left here. Your papers aren't here. I went through your belongings before throwing them out. There was nothing important. Beatrice took a step forward. Actually, there was something very important. My dignity, and the safety of these 4 girls that I swore to protect. The silence in the room was absolute. Veronica narrowed her eyes. What are you talking about? I'm talking about what I saw while I worked here. The cruel treatment, the disproportionate punishments, the constant fear these children live in. You're insane. Get out of my house now. Not before I tell the truth to all these women here, Beatrice pointed to the guests. You just saw this woman almost hit a 6-year-old child for accidentally dropping pastries. Imagine what she does when there are no witnesses. Veronica's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. Patricia took a step forward. Veronica, what is going on here? Nothing is going on. This woman is a disgruntled employee trying to slander me. Veronica was losing her composure. Richard watched from outside, his heart beating violently. It was time. It was now or never. The tension in the dining room was palpable. Veronica's 5 friends stood motionless, torn between loyalty to their hostess and obvious discomfort with the scene they had witnessed. The 4 girls remained huddled in the corner, holding each other, their eyes wide with fear. Beatrice stood firm in the center of the room, her shoulders back, her chin held high. Veronica took a step towards Beatrice, her face contorted with fury. You have no right to come into my house and make absurd accusations. I'm going to call the police and have you arrested for trespassing and slander. Slander implies a lie, Beatrice replied calmly. Everything I'm saying is true, and these women here just saw with their own eyes how you treat these children. Eleanor, the friend who had already shown concern during lunch, stepped forward. Veronica, I saw you raise your hand to hit that little girl. Over some pastries on the floor, that's not normal. She was being undisciplined, Veronica defended herself, but her voice was less confident now. I warned her that any mistake would have consequences. I was just following through on my promise. Is hitting a 6-year-old an appropriate consequence for an accident? Beatrice questioned. And what else do you do when there are no witnesses, when you're alone with them? I do nothing but raise them properly. That's a lie. Beatrice walked closer to the girls. I worked here for 2 weeks. I saw you withhold food as punishment. I saw you lock these children in their room for hours. I heard you screaming cruel insults. I saw the bruises, the fear in their eyes, the way they flinch when you come near. Enough, Veronica shouted. Mark, get this woman out of here now. The security guard appeared at the door but hesitated. He looked from Veronica to Beatrice, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Patricia slung her purse over her shoulder. Veronica, I think I should go. This is getting very strange. No, wait, Veronica pleaded, her mask of control beginning to crack. She's lying. She's a resentful employee I fired for incompetence. You're not going to believe her over me, are you? Another friend named Regina looked at the girls. Can we ask the children? If there's nothing wrong, they'll confirm it. Absolutely not. Veronica blocked the way. They're children. They can't articulate their feelings properly. They'll say nonsense just to get attention. Beatrice knelt in front of the 4 girls. Sophia, Lucy, Mia, Hannah, look at me. Are you afraid of Veronica? The girls looked at Beatrice, then at Veronica, then back at Beatrice. Sophia started to cry. Mia bit her lip. Lucy squeezed her sister's hands. Hannah was the smallest, the most fragile, but it was she who finally spoke. We're very scared. She's mean to us when Daddy isn't here. The impact of those words was immense. Veronica's friends looked at each other, horror evident on their faces. Eleanor covered her mouth with her hand. Patricia took a step back. Regina took out her phone. These children have been manipulated, Veronica said quickly, almost shouting. Beatrice filled their heads with lies when she worked here. They don't know what they're saying. They know exactly what they're saying, Beatrice retorted, standing up. And I'm sure if someone investigates properly, they'll find much more evidence. No one is going to investigate anything because there's nothing to investigate. Veronica was losing control completely now. You will all leave my house, all of you, now. Outside, Richard watched everything through the window. Julian had instructed him to wait for the right moment. The moment when Veronica was completely exposed, vulnerable, with no possibility of recovering her facade of the perfect wife and stepmother. But seeing his daughters there, crying, confessing their fear, was almost unbearable. Inside the room, Sophia took a step forward, gathering her courage. She hurts us. She yells. She says we're useless, stupid, that our daddy doesn't really love us. Shut up, Veronica hissed, advancing towards the girl. Beatrice immediately placed herself between them. Don't you come near these children. Get out of my way. This brat is lying and needs to be punished. The other girls started talking too, the words pouring out in a torrent now that the dam had broken. She doesn't let us eat properly, Lucy said. She tore up our mother's drawings, Mia added, her voice trembling. She said if we told Daddy, he would send us away forever, Hannah cried. Veronica's friends were shocked. Regina was already on her phone, probably calling someone. Eleanor moved closer to the girls, instinctively wanting to protect them. Patricia was looking at Veronica with disgust. Veronica was cornered. Her reputation, so carefully constructed, was crumbling right there in front of witnesses. The fury on her face was terrifying. You will regret this, she snarled at the girls. When your father comes back and hears all these lies you've invented, you'll see. I'll tell him how manipulative, deceitful and cruel you are. He'll believe me, not you. He won't believe you, Beatrice said firmly, because the truth always comes out. Veronica turned to Beatrice with pure hatred in her eyes. This is all your fault. You planted these ideas in their heads. You taught them to defy me. I taught them that they don't have to be afraid, that they deserve to be treated with respect and love. Respect? Veronica laughed, a sharp, uncontrolled sound. Children don't deserve respect. Children deserve obedience and discipline until they learn their place. Their place is to be loved, not terrorized. The argument was escalating. Veronica's friends started moving towards the door, clearly wanting to leave the situation. But Eleanor remained looking at the girls with genuine concern. Veronica, I think you need professional help, Eleanor said carefully. This is not normal behavior. These children are clearly traumatized. Traumatized, they're spoiled, Veronica pointed at the girls. My husband is too rich, gives them everything they want. Someone needed to be the responsible adult and set boundaries. There's a difference between boundaries and abuse, Beatrice said. That word, abuse, was the trigger. Veronica lunged at Beatrice, shoving her hard. Beatrice staggered, but didn't fall. The girls screamed. Eleanor tried to get between the two women. You don't understand. Veronica was almost hysterical now. I did everything right. I followed the rules. I married a rich man. I have this wonderful house. I should be living the perfect life. But these children ruin everything. They cry, they complain, they look at me with those accusing eyes, as if I were a monster. You are a monster, Sophia said, and for the first time there was courage in her voice instead of fear. The silence that followed was heavy. All heads turned to Sophia. The 6-year-old girl was standing tall, her fists clenched, tears streaming down her face, but there was determination in her eyes. What did you say? Veronica asked, dangerously low. You are a monster. You are evil. You hurt us and you enjoy it. You don't love us. You don't love anyone but yourself. Veronica turned livid. Her hands trembled. She looked around, seeing the faces of her former friends filled with shock and revulsion, seeing Beatrice prepared to protect the girls at any cost, seeing her carefully constructed life crumbling, and it was in that moment of total loss of control that she raised her hand and lunged at Sophia. Beatrice didn't think twice. She threw herself in front of the girl, taking the violent slap in her place. The sound echoed through the room like a thunderclap. Beatrice's head snapped back from the impact. A red mark instantly appeared on her face. The witnesses were paralyzed with shock. Eleanor covered her mouth. Regina was now filming everything on her phone. The other two friends ran for the door. You're fired, Veronica screamed, her voice shrill. Get out of my house. Get out now before I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. Beatrice touched her face, feeling the sting of the slap, but she didn't move. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving you alone with these children. You have no choice. Yes, I do, and I'm going. To use that choice to protect them no matter the cost. It was at that moment that a male voice sounded from the entrance of the room, firm and calm. The violence stops here, now. All heads turned towards the voice. At the entrance to the dining room stood the gardener, John. But there was something different about his posture. He was no longer hunched over like a humble worker. He stood tall, his shoulders back, walking with the confidence of someone who owned that house. His voice had lost its southern drawl. It was clear, educated, authoritative. "Who do you think you are giving orders in my house?" Veronica demanded, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. Richard walked slowly to the center of the room. All the witnesses watched, confused. The girls looked at the gardener with strange expressions, as if something about him was vaguely familiar, but they couldn't place it. "My house," he repeated calmly, "and it's time to end this charade." With deliberate movements, Richard brought his hands to his beard. He loosened the adhesive that held it in place and pulled it off slowly. The transformation was dramatic. Where there had been a graying, middle-aged man, now stood Richard Sterling, 52 years old. Dark hair, a clean-shaven face, known to everyone in that room. The shock was total. Veronica staggered backward, bumping into the table. The remaining friends gasped. Beatrice's eyes widened, finally understanding completely. And the girls, his 4 girls, stood frozen for a second before shouting in unison, "Daddy!" They ran towards him, but Richard held up a hand gently. "I'll hug you in just a moment, my princesses. But first, some matters need to be settled here." He turned to Veronica, who was as pale as a ghost, her mouth opening and closing without forming words. Richard removed his cap, and from inside it he took out the small camera. He held it up for everyone to see. This recorded everything that happened in this room for the last 40 minutes. The slap you gave Beatrice, the threats to my daughters, your confessions about using fear as a tool of control. He reached into the pocket of his worn-out pants and took out the digital recorder. And this recorded 2 full weeks of abuse, every scream, every insult, every moment of cruelty against 4 6-year-old children who had no way to defend themselves. Veronica finally found her voice. "You tricked me. You lied. This is an invasion of privacy. These recordings are illegal." "Actually, they're not," a new voice said from the doorway. Julian Croft entered the room with a leather briefcase under his arm. He was recording inside his own home, observing the treatment given to his own daughters. Perfectly legal and extremely incriminating. "Who are you?" Veronica asked. "Julian Croft, Mr. Sterling's attorney for 15 years. And I have here all the necessary paperwork to sue you for child abuse, physical assault, emotional abuse, and making threats." "This is absurd." Veronica looked at her friends as if seeking support, but they all avoided her gaze. "He set this all up. It was a trap." "It was," Richard confirmed. "A trap you fell into because you are exactly the kind of cruel person I suspected you were. When I started noticing changes in my daughter's behavior, I hoped I was wrong. I prayed I was wrong. But every day I spent disguised in this house, watching, recording, witnessing, confirmed my worst fears." He walked until he was very close to Veronica. "You terrorized my daughters. You denied them food. You screamed cruel insults. You threatened to abandon them. You destroyed drawings they made in memory of the mother they lost, all while I was supposedly on the other side of the world." "Actually," Julian interrupted, "my client never left the country. We hired an actor to make daily phone calls to you, perfectly imitating his voice. You never suspected because you were too busy abusing defenseless children." One of Veronica's friends, Eleanor, stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling, I saw what she did today, and from what the girls said, it was much worse when there were no witnesses. I am willing to testify in any proceedings." "Me too," Regina said, holding up her phone, "and I have the video of the slap she gave this brave woman." Beatrice was still holding a hand to her face, the red mark bright against her skin. Richard looked at her, and his eyes filled with tears. "You took that slap for my daughter. You put yourself at risk for them, even knowing you would be fired, humiliated, assaulted." He turned back to Veronica. "Beatrice is the only person in this house who had the courage to protect my daughters when I couldn't. The Only one who put their well-being above her own safety. She is a hero, and you are a monster. Veronica tried one last gambit. Richard, I know it looks bad, but you don't understand. These girls are difficult, they're defiant, disobedient. I was just trying to raise them to be decent people. Liar, Sophia shouted. We never did anything wrong. You're the one who's mean. Richard knelt and opened his arms. Now, my princesses, come here. The four of them ran to him as if their lives depended on it. Sophia, Lucy, Mia, and Hannah clung to their father, crying, laughing, trembling. Richard wrapped them in a tight hug, feeling their small bodies against his, inhaling the scent of their hair. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner. I'm sorry for every second of suffering you went through. You came back, Hannah sobbed. You really came back. I never left, my love. I was here the whole time, watching, protecting in the only way I could, gathering proof to make sure she can never hurt you again. Mia pulled away slightly to look at his face. You were the gardener, Uncle. John? That was me. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I needed to be absolutely sure. I needed proof that no judge could ignore. Lucy touched the fake beard that was now in Richard's hand. That's why you looked different. Exactly. Richard kissed each of them on the forehead. But it's over now, you're safe. She won't hurt you anymore. Never again. Veronica was trapped. Her face alternated between red with rage and white with panic. Richard, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be this way. I can change. We can go to couples therapy. Learn to be a real family. Julian laughed, a completely humorless sound. Ma'am, the only therapy you need has nothing to do with marriage. It has to do with your inability to feel empathy for vulnerable children. Richard stood up, keeping the girls close to him. Veronica, our marriage was over the moment you first raised your hand to one of my daughters. Julian is having divorce papers drawn up. You will not receive a single cent beyond what the prenuptial agreement stipulates, and a restraining order is being processed to ensure you never come near these children again. You can't do this. I can and I will. I have proof of abuse that any judge will consider more than sufficient. I have witnesses, Beatrice and your friends here, who saw you physically assault a woman who was protecting a child. I have hours of recordings of your cruelty. Julian opened his briefcase and took out a stack of documents. Furthermore, ma'am, we are filing a criminal complaint for child abuse. The district attorney's office will investigate your case. You can be sure you will undergo a full psychological evaluation. You're destroying my life, Veronica cried, but the tears seemed more of rage than genuine sorrow. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided to take out your frustrations on innocent children, Richard said coldly. And you tried to destroy my daughters' lives too. But you failed. Because despite the fear, despite the suffering, they are strong, they are survivors. And they will recover from this. He looked at Beatrice, who was still standing there with the mark of the slap still visible. Thanks to people like Beatrice, who had the courage to take a stand. To sacrifice her own safety for the safety of 4 little girls, she barely knew. Beatrice wiped away a tear. I couldn't stay quiet. Not again. Julian approached Veronica. Ma'am, you will need to leave this property immediately. You may take only personal belongings. Everything purchased with Mr. Sterling's money stays here. You have 1 hour to pack. An officer will supervise you to ensure you do not destroy or steal anything. As if I were a criminal, Veronica spat. You are a criminal. You physically and emotionally assaulted children. You struck a woman in front of witnesses. The video is already being sent to the proper authorities as we speak. Veronica looked around the room. Every face was against her. Her former friends, the lawyer, the husband she had deceived, the nanny she had underestimated, the 4 girls she had tried to break. There was no way out, no way to reverse this. With a scream of frustration, she turned and ran up the stairs. They all heard the bedroom door slam shut. Richard hugged his daughters again, this time longer, tighter. It's over, he whispered. It's finally over. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Julian made calls to ensure an officer would arrive quickly to supervise Veronica's departure. Her friends left one by one, but not before offering their testimony and contact information. Eleanor hugged each of the girls and told Richard she was available to help in any way needed. Regina sent the recorded video directly to Julian's email. Martha appeared from the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. "Mr. Sterling, I knew it. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have the courage to speak up. Forgive me." Richard hugged the cook who had been with his family for so many years. "Martha, you did what you could. You snuck food to the girls when they were hungry. You sent me notes to warn me. You helped in the way you were able. But I should have done more. We all do the best we can with the tools we have. The important thing is that they're safe now." The girls wouldn't let go of their father. They clung to his legs, his waist, his arms, as if they feared that if they let go, he would disappear again. Richard let them, understanding that they needed that physical connection to start believing they were truly safe. Beatrice remained in a corner of the room, still, processing everything that had happened. The mark from the slap on her face was starting to darken, promising to become an ugly bruise. Richard approached her while Julian was talking on the phone. "You need some ice for that." Beatrice touched her cheek. "I've been through worse. You shouldn't have to go through any of this." Richard took her hand gently. "You put yourself in danger for my daughters. I don't have enough words to thank you. They deserve to be protected. Every child does. Even so, few would have the courage you did to stand up to a cruel employer, risk your job, come back even after being fired, take a violent slap. You're extraordinary." Beatrice blushed slightly. "I just did what was right. And that's what makes you extraordinary, because so many people don't do what's right when it's hard." Richard took a deep breath. "I want you to know that you will always have a place in this house, not as an employee, but as part of the family. The girls trust you. I trust you." "Mr. Sterling, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's recognition and gratitude. My daughters need good people around them, people who genuinely care about their well-being. You've proven to be one of those people." Before Beatrice could respond, noises from upstairs indicated that Veronica was coming down. She appeared at the top of the stairs carrying 2 large suitcases, her face stained with mascara, her eyes swollen. Behind her was a court officer Julian had managed to contact quickly. The girls hid behind their father when they saw Veronica. Richard placed his hands on their shoulders, a protective and comforting gesture. Veronica descended the steps slowly. She stopped on the last one, looking at the room that had been hers for only 4 months, but which she had treated as her personal kingdom. Her gaze passed over each person present, full of resentment and contempt. "You will all regret this," she said, her voice laced with venom. "Especially you, Richard. You thought you were clever, but you underestimated me. I'll hire the best lawyers. I'll destroy your reputation. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are, setting up situations to get rid of your wives." Julian stepped forward. "Ma'am, I strongly advise you to stop talking now. Every threat you make is being witnessed and can be used against you in court." Veronica ignored him, focusing on Richard. "And you pretended to love me, pretended to want to build a family. It was all a trap from the beginning." "I wanted to believe you were a good person," Richard answered calmly. "I wanted to believe my daughters would have a mother figure after losing their own mother. But you showed your true colors. And yes, when I realized, I set up a situation to get concrete proof. I would do it again without hesitation. My only responsibility is to these 4 girls, and I will protect them from any threat, no matter where it comes from. They are spoiled, disrespectful, unbearable. They are children who were terrified. There's a huge difference." The court officer touched Veronica's shoulder. "Ma'am, I need to escort you out. Your presence on this property is no longer welcome." Veronica gripped her suitcases. She looked one last time at the girls. "You'll grow up without discipline, without structure. You'll become weak and troubled adults. And when that happens, remember who tried to teach you order." Sophia, surprising everyone, took a step forward. "We don't need order. We need love. And you never had any love to give, only anger." The simple truth spoken by a 6-year-old hit deeper than any adult argument could. Veronica went livid, opened her mouth to respond, but the officer was already guiding her firmly towards the door. They watched her walk through the garden, pass through the gate, and get into a taxi that was waiting on the street. The suitcases were thrown into the trunk carelessly. And then she was gone. Forever. The silence that followed was different from the tense silences of the past weeks. It was a silence of relief, of liberation, of a new beginning. Mia was the first to speak. "She's not coming back, Daddy. Are you sure?" "I'm absolutely sure. Julian will make sure the papers are processed quickly. In a few days, we'll have the official restraining order. She won't be able to come near you, not even casually on the street." "What if she tries?" Hannah asked, still with fear in her voice. "Then she'll be arrested. The law protects you now." Lucy tugged on her father's sleeve. "Why didn't you tell us it was you, when you were the gardener?" "We could have been less scared." Richard knelt to be at their eye level. "I wanted to tell you. Every day was torture not being able to. But I needed real proof, you understand? If I had confronted her without proof, she would have denied everything. She would have said you were lying, that I was making it up. And maybe a judge would have believed her, but now I have hours of recordings, videos, witnesses. No one can doubt what happened. And that ensures she will never have the chance to hurt you again." "Was it worth it?" Sophia asked. "To see us suffer just to get proof?" The question was difficult, painful. Richard felt tears burning in his eyes. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Every scream I heard, every tear I saw, every moment of fear in your eyes was like a knife in my heart. But I knew that if I didn't do it right, if I didn't have irrefutable proof, she could get away with it. She could keep hurting you. So yes, it was worth it. Because now you are truly safe." The four of them hugged him again. This time the hug was different. It wasn't desperation. It was forgiveness. It was understanding. It was love reconnecting after being tested to its limit. Martha appeared from the kitchen. "Mr. Sterling, I've prepared a snack for the girls. I thought they should eat something after all this." "Great idea. Come on, girls, time to eat for real. No absurd restrictions, no tiny portions." In the kitchen, Martha had prepared a bountiful spread. Sandwiches, fruit, juices, cookies, cakes. The girls looked at it all with wide eyes, as if they couldn't believe they could eat as much as they wanted. "You can eat as much as you like," Richard said gently. "There's no punishment. There are no consequences. It's just food, and you deserve to eat until you're full." They started slowly, still testing the boundaries, but gradually they relaxed, grabbing another sandwich, then another piece of fruit, laughing when they got juice on themselves. It was as if they were rediscovering what it was like to be a child. Beatrice watched from the doorway, a sad smile on her face. Richard noticed and gestured for her to come closer. "Sit with us. You're a part of this too." She hesitated but finally sat down. Mia immediately snuggled, up next to her. Hannah took her hand. They were simple but powerful gestures. The girls were showing that Beatrice was important to them, that they trusted her. Julian came into the kitchen, putting his phone away. "Richard, the divorce papers will be ready tomorrow. The restraining order should be approved in 48 hours, and the district attorney's office has been notified. They'll want to speak with you, with the girls, and see all the recordings." "Will the girls have to talk?" Richard asked, concerned. "Eventually, yes, but it can be done gently, with specialized child psychologists present. It won't be traumatic. In fact, it might even be therapeutic for them to express what they went through in a safe environment. All right, we'll do whatever is best for them." Julian smiled. "You did well, Richard. It was a risky strategy, but it worked perfectly." "It wasn't a strategy, it was necessity. It was a father's love taken to the extreme." After Julian left to start processing the legal documents, the house finally quieted down. The girls finished eating and asked to watch television, something Veronica had rarely allowed. Richard turned on the TV in the living room and put on a cartoon. They settled onto the large sofa, finally relaxed, finally safe. Beatrice started to get up to leave, but Richard stopped her. "Stay for dinner, please. It's the least I can offer." She agreed, and together they prepared a simple meal while the girls watched TV. In the kitchen, working side by side, Richard realized how easy it was to be around Beatrice. There was no tension, no falsehood, just two people who shared the common goal of protecting 4 children. "Can I ask you a personal question?" he said while chopping vegetables. "Of course." "Why do you risk so much? You barely knew my daughters when you started defending them." Beatrice stopped stirring the pot and looked out the window. "I told you about the previous case, right? The boy who ended up in the hospital." "You did. What I didn't tell you is that it took me months to report it. Months of seeing that child suffer, doing the minimum to help, but always afraid of losing my job. When I finally got the courage, it was too late. The damage was done." She turned to face him. "I swore I would never hesitate again, that I would never put my own safety above a child's. Your daughters gave me the chance to fulfill that vow." "You're an incredible person, Beatrice." His words came out heavy with genuine emotion. "I'm a person trying to be better than I was in the past. Nothing more than that." The following weeks were about adjustment and healing. Richard took time off from work to stay home with the girls, helping them process everything they had been through. He hired a child psychologist specializing in trauma, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a gentle woman with kind eyes who quickly earned the trust of the 4. The sessions took place 3 times a week, sometimes individually, sometimes as a group. Dr. Reed used drawings, games, and conversations to help the girls express their feelings. Gradually, they began to speak openly about the fear they had felt, the confusion, the sense of abandonment when they thought their father had left them. Sophia revealed that she had stopped drawing because Veronica would tear up her creations. Lucy admitted she stayed quiet because every word was used against her. Mia confessed that she tried to be brave for her sisters, but was terrified inside. Hannah cried as she said she thought it was their fault, that if they were better girls, their stepmother wouldn't have been so mean. Each revelation broke Richard's heart, but Dr. Reed assured him that this openness was an essential part of healing. The wounds had to be exposed before they could heal. Beatrice became a constant presence in the house. Officially, Richard hired her as the girls' educational tutor, but in practice she was much more. She was a confidant, a friend, the mother figure they needed. The girls blossomed under her loving attention. Sophia started drawing again. Her first works were dark, filled with threatening figures and somber colors. But gradually they became lighter. Flowers began to appear, smiles on the faces of the stick figures. And always, always there were 5 figures, 4 small ones and 1 adult female with black hair, all holding hands. Lucy rediscovered her voice. She started asking questions again, telling stories about her day, singing while she played. Her laugh, which had completely disappeared during the months with Veronica, once again echoed through the halls of the mansion. Mia stopped feeling like she had to be the protector. She allowed herself to be a child again, to make mistakes without fear of punishment, to cry when she was sad without being called weak. She and Richard had long talks about strength, about how true courage isn't the absence of fear, but doing the right thing in spite of it. Hannah went back to inventing fantastic stories. She created a whole world of fairies and princesses where no one was evil, where everyone helped each other, where love always won. Beatrice encouraged her, writing down the stories as Hannah told them, creating handmade little books that the girl treasured. The restraining order was approved. Veronica could not come within 500 yards of any member of the Sterling family. The divorce was in process, and with all the evidence Richard presented, there was no chance of a significant challenge. She would receive only what was stipulated in the prenuptial agreement, a modest sum considering Richard's fortune. Veronica tried through her lawyers to claim she had been set up, that the evidence was fabricated, but when the videos were presented, when the recordings were played, when Beatrice, Martha, Eleanor, and Regina testified, there were no arguments left. The district attorney's office offered a plea deal, sparing her prison time, in exchange for mandatory psychological treatment and community service. She accepted quickly, wanting to end the scandal that was ruining her reputation in the social circles of Bel Air. A month after the reveal, Richard woke up early and went to the kitchen. Beatrice was already there making coffee. She had started arriving earlier and earlier, staying later, becoming an integral part of the family routine. "Good morning," she said with a smile. Coffee? Please. Richard sat at the table. How do you sleep so little and still have so much energy? Beatrice laughed, pouring 2 cups. A professional secret. From years of working in daycares, you learn to function on fragmented sleep. They drank in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Finally, Richard spoke. Beatrice, I need to talk to you about something important. She put her cup down, her face serious. Of course, what is it? You realize how important you are to this family, don't you? Not just to the girls, but to me too. Beatrice looked away, a faint blush on her cheeks. I like being here. The girls are special. You're special. Richard reached for her hand across the table. When I saw you throw yourself in front of Sophia to take that slap, when I saw you defend my daughters knowing the consequences, I saw something I hadn't seen in a very long time. What? Genuine courage, selfless kindness, true maternal love. He squeezed her hand gently. My first wife, Laura, was like that. She put the girls above everything else, loved unconditionally. When she was gone, I thought that kind of love would never be a part of our lives again. Richard, I'm not trying to replace their mother. I know, and that's exactly why you've become so important. You're not trying to erase Laura from their memory. You're helping to honor her by being the kind of loving presence she would have been. Beatrice had tears in her eyes now. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. I just want you to know that you have a permanent place in this family if you want it. Not as an employee, but as part of us. The girls need you, and I need you. Before she could answer, 4 pairs of feet came running down the stairs. The girls burst into the kitchen in colorful pajamas, their hair disheveled, their eyes still puffy with sleep. "Bea!" Sophia shouted, using the affectionate nickname they had given Beatrice. "Are you making pancakes today?" Beatrice quickly wiped her tears and smiled. "I'm making the best pancakes in the world. Heart-shaped, just how you like them." The girls cheered. Richard watched the scene, his heart full. It wasn't the same family he had before. It never would be. The scars left by Veronica would take time to fully heal. But they were on the right path. They were together, safe, loved. After breakfast, they decided to spend the day in the garden. It was a perfect sunny Saturday. Richard set up a large inflatable pool for the girls. Beatrice prepared snacks and lemonade. Martha brought out towels and sunscreen. The girls played in the water, laughing, splashing each other, completely carefree. Richard sat in a deck chair watching, Beatrice by his side. "They seem different," Beatrice commented. "Lighter. They are different. The fear is gone. They're being kids again." Sophia got out of the pool, dripping water, and ran to them. "Daddy, Bea, aren't you getting in?" "We're too old for inflatable pools," Richard joked. "No one's too old." "So to have fun," Mia shouted from the water. Beatrice looked at Richard with a challenging smile. "She's right. You're not seriously thinking of getting in there." "I am, and so are you. Come on." Before Richard could protest, Beatrice took off the t-shirt she was wearing over her swimsuit, revealing she was already prepared. She jumped into the inflatable pool, creating a wave that made the girls shriek with delight. "Come on, Daddy," Hannah called. "Don't be a party pooper." Richard laughed, defeated. He took off his shirt and got into the pool too. The water was cool, but his daughter's laughter warmed his heart. They played for hours. They had water fights, invented silly games, told bad jokes. During a lull, while the girls were trying to teach Beatrice a dance routine they learned at school, Mia approached Richard. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always, my love." "Do you like Bea?" Richard looked at his daughter, surprised by the direct question. "I like her very much. She's a wonderful person." "No, I mean, like—" Mia made a vague gesture with her hands. "The way you liked Mommy." The question caught Richard off guard. He looked at Beatrice, who was laughing as she tried to keep up with the girls' moves. There was something about her, a light, a kindness, that drew him in ways he hadn't expected to feel again. "I don't know yet," he answered honestly, "but I know she makes me happy. And you happy. And maybe that's enough for now." Mia nodded wisely. too old for her age in some ways. We like her too, a lot. If you want to date her, we won't mind. She's nice. Richard hugged Mia, touched by his daughter's generosity. Thank you for telling me that, Princess, but these things take time. Let's go slow, okay? Okay. That night, after the girls had gone to sleep, Richard and Beatrice sat on the porch talking. The sky was full of stars, a rare sight in Los Angeles, but visible on that clear night. The girls asked me today if I liked you, Richard said suddenly. Beatrice turned to him, surprised. Oh, they did? And what did you say? I told them the truth, that I like you very much, that you make me happy. Richard, I don't know if it's a good idea to mix things up. The girls are in the process of healing. They need stability, not complications. I know, and I'm not suggesting we change anything right now. I'm just being honest about how I feel. He looked at her. Do you feel something too? Beatrice took a deep breath. I do. Ever since that first day when you, as the gardener, showed concern for the girls. Ever since I saw you sacrifice your own peace of mind to protect them. How could I not feel something for someone like that? So let's go slow, no pressure, no expectations, just letting it happen naturally. She smiled. Slow sounds perfect. They sat side by side, looking at the stars, feeling that the future, for the first time in a long time, held good promise. The house was no longer a prison of fear, it was a home again, and maybe, with time and care, it could become something even more special. 6 months had passed since the day of the revelation. The Los Angeles winter was ending, and spring was beginning to show its signs. The jacaranda trees were blooming on the streets of Bel Air, painting everything purple. And in the Sterling mansion, another deeper transformation had taken place. The girls were unrecognizable. Not in appearance, they were still identical quadruplets with honey-colored eyes and brown hair, but in spirit. Sophia drew constantly, her artwork covering the walls of her room and the refrigerator. Lucy chattered away, telling elaborate stories about her school day. Mia had joined the girls' soccer team at school and was loving it. Hannah wrote fairy tales that Beatrice compiled in special notebooks. Dr. Reed, in her latest assessment, declared that the girls had made remarkable progress. The nightmares had drastically decreased. The anxiety episodes were rare. They were learning to trust again, to play, to simply be children. The trauma would always be part of their stories, but it would no longer define them. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Veronica disappeared from their lives completely, moving to Miami where she was trying to start over, far from the scandal that had followed her in Los Angeles. She was completing her community service and attending mandatory therapy. Richard felt neither pity nor anger, only indifference. She was a turned page, a closed chapter. Beatrice had officially become part of the family, not just as a tutor or nanny, but as something far more significant. The relationship between her and Richard grew slowly, as they had promised, built on a solid foundation of mutual respect and a shared love for the girls. Dinners became dates. Porch conversations turned into deep confidences. Casual glances became intense connections. The girls completely approved. They made not-so-secret plans to get the two together. They would purposely leave Richard and Beatrice alone. They would ask when Beatrice was going to move in for real. They were determined little cupids. On one special Saturday afternoon, Richard organized a picnic in the garden. Martha prepared all the girls' favorite dishes. Richard set up a large tent under the ancient tree, the very same one where he had hidden months ago, watching as a disguised gardener. But that time felt like a lifetime ago now. The girls ran through the garden, catching butterflies and making flower crowns. Beatrice and Richard arranged the food on a red and white checkered blanket. It was a scene of perfect domestic normality, exactly the kind of simple moment that had been impossible during the dark months with Veronica. After they ate, Sophia brought over a large portfolio. I made something, she announced shyly. I wanted to show you. She opened the portfolio to reveal a set of drawings, clearly worked on with great care. The first showed the family as it was before. A woman with long dark hair, a tall man, 4 little girls, all smiling, holding hands. My family before, Sophia explained, her voice choked with emotion. with Mommy Laura. The second drawing was very different, dark, with shades of grey and black. The four little girls looked scared. A blonde, angular female figure loomed menacingly over them. And in the corner a man watched from a distance. When the mean lady was here, Sophia said, we were scared. But Daddy was watching us even when we didn't know. The third drawing exploded with colour. The four girls in the centre, smiling. The man beside them, his arms open in a hug. And a new female figure, with black hair in a ponytail, surrounded by flowers and sunshine. Our family now, Sophia said, looking at Beatrice, with B. Beatrice had tears streaming down her face. Sophia, this is beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Richard was emotional too. You captured it perfectly, Princess. Our journey, where we came from, what we went through, where we are now. Sophia hugged them both. We're happy again, Daddy. And it's because you saved us, and because B loves us. Mia joined the hug. You two are the best. You should just get married already. Richard and Beatrice laughed through their tears. Mia, things aren't that simple. Why not? You like each other. We like you. Everyone's happy. Seems simple to me, Lucy argued with the direct logic of childhood. It is simple, Hannah agreed. Love is simple. People make it complicated. Richard looked at Beatrice. She was wiping her tears, but her eyes shone with something he recognized. Hope, possibility, love. You know what? You're right. Love should be simple. He took Beatrice's hand. And when it's with the right person, it is. Beatrice squeezed his hand. Very simple. They kissed, a soft kiss full of promise. The girls applauded and cheered, jumping around them like little fairies celebrating a successful spell. That night, after the girls were asleep, Richard and Beatrice sat on the porch again. It had become their ritual, those quiet moments under the stars. You know they're going to start planning a wedding now, don't you? Beatrice said with a smile. Let them plan. It could be fun. Are you serious about us? Richard turned to face her completely. I am. I know it's fast by normal standards. But nothing about our story has been normal. You came into our lives at our darkest moment. You risked everything to protect my daughters. You endured physical assault to save them. And then you stayed, helping to heal wounds you didn't cause. How could I not fall in love with someone like that? Beatrice touched his face gently. I fell in love with you the day I found out the humble. Gardner was actually a father willing to do anything to save his daughters. That kind of fatherly love, that quiet courage, was everything I always believed existed but rarely saw. So let's do this right. A proper courtship, getting to know all parts of each other, building something solid. And when the time is right, when the girls are completely healed, when we're absolutely sure, then we'll talk about marriage. That sounds perfect. Months later, in a small, intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden, Richard and Beatrice were married. The four girls were bridesmaids, wearing lavender dresses they had chosen themselves. Sophia designed the invitations. Lucy wrote a poem that she read during the ceremony. Mia and Hannah scattered rose petals down the aisle. There weren't many guests. Julian was there, proud to have helped orchestrate the plan that saved the girls. Martha cried with joy. Dr. Reed attended, witnessing the happy ending to a story that had begun so darkly. Eleanor and Regina also came, Veronica's former friends, who had had the courage to testify to the truth. When the justice of the peace asked for their vows, Richard spoke first. Beatrice, you came into my life like an angel disguised as a nanny. You saved my daughters when I couldn't. You taught me that true love is sacrifice. It's putting yourself in danger to protect the innocent. I promise to honor your courage every day. I promise to be the partner you deserve. I promise to build a home with you where our daughters will grow up happy and safe. Beatrice wiped away tears before she spoke. Richard, you showed me that it's not too late to be the person I always wanted to be, that a past mistake doesn't define me forever. Your daughters gave me purpose. You gave me love. I promise to protect this family with everything I have. I promise to love these four girls as my own. I promise to be the light on dark days and the celebration on happy ones. When they kissed as husband and wife, The girls screamed so loudly the neighbors 3 houses down must have heard, and no one cared. It was a cry of pure joy, of triumph over darkness, of love won through adversity. The party lasted late into the evening. There was dancing, laughter, shared stories. Sophia presented the couple with a painted portrait of their new family, her proud signature in the corner. Lucy recited another poem she had made up on the spot. Mia gave a speech saying that Beatrice was the best stepmother in the world, the complete opposite of that other one. Hannah simply hugged Beatrice and whispered, "Thank you for saving us, thank you for staying, thank you for loving us." When the night ended and the guests had gone, the family of 6 sat on the porch. Richard, Beatrice, and the 4 girls squeezed onto rocking chairs and cushions looking at the stars. "This is our story," Richard said softly, "of pain and fear, but also of courage and love, of how darkness can be overcome when good people decide to fight. And of how family isn't just about blood," Beatrice added. "It's about choice, it's commitment, it's being there in the worst of times, and in the best of times too," Sophia said, snuggling between them. The future shone ahead like those stars in the sky. There would be challenges, certainly. The scars left by Veronica would never completely disappear, but they would face everything together, as a family, with love as the only weapon they needed. And that night, under the starry Bel Air sky, 6 hearts beat in sync, united by the most unlikely journey, by shared pain, and by reclaimed joy. It was a happy ending, but more importantly, it was a new beginning. And new beginnings, when made with the right people, can be more beautiful than any start. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Richard, Beatrice, and the 4 brave girls has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours in telling it. This narrative about paternal sacrifice, courage in the face of fear, and the transformative power of true love reminds us that even in the darkest hours, light can prevail when good people decide to act. If this emotional journey resonated with you, please help us continue sharing stories that celebrate human resilience and the triumph of good. Click the bell icon to subscribe to our channel and not miss any of the captivating narratives we have prepared. Leave a like if the story of Richard and his princesses moved you as much as it moved us. And in the comments, we want to know which moment marked you the most on this journey, which character you admired the most, what feelings this story awakened in you. Every day we bring new stories that explore the fascinating labyrinths of life, love, and family. Be part of this community that believes in the power of narratives to connect us, make us reflect, and inspire us to be better people. We are waiting for you in the comments with your story too. Until the next narrative.